Technical Veterinary Learning Channel, honored by Professor Ahmed Mamdouh El-Sherif, Professor of Epidemiology and Infectious Diseases, the ex-head of Department of Veterinary Medicine, the ex-Vice Dean of Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Bani Suef University, Egypt, presents today. Epidemiological series will be continued today. We will speak about descriptive and analytical epidemiological studies. Epidemiology approach and methods. As with all scientific endeavors, the practice of epidemiology relies on a systematic approach. In very simple terms, we have to count, divides, and compares. Before counting cases, however, must decide what a case is. This is done by developing two case definition, then using this case definition to collect information about the deceased case, then performs a descriptive epidemiology by characterizing the cases collectively according to time, place, and population. To calculate the disease rate, we divide the number of cases by the size of the population. Finally, to determine whether this rate is greater than what one would normally expect, and if so, to identify factors contributing to this increases. We have to compare the rate from this population to the rate in an appropriate comparison group. Using analytic epidemiology techniques, and these actions will be described in more detail below. Epidemiology study types. Epidemiology have a range of study designs from observational, experimental, and theoretical. Generally, observational categories are descriptive and analytical. Experimental, a term often equated with clinical or community trials of treatment and or other interventions. Theoretical are hypothesized. Observational studies, nature is allowed to take its course as we observe from the sidelines. Conversely, in experimental studies, we control of all the factors entering a certain case study. Epidemiology studies are aimed, where possible, at revealing unbiased relationships between exposures, such as entrance of tuberculosis with newly purchased cow to free farm, alcohol or smoking addiction, or linkage between chemical exposure in polluted cities to increase rate of mortality and morbidity due to lung or respiratory affections in animals and humans. The identification of causal relationship between these exposures and outcomes is an important aspect of epidemiology. In modern epidemiology, we use informatics as a tool. Observational studies have two components, descriptive and analytical. Descriptive observations pertain to the who, what, and where, as well as when the disease or health-related state occur. However, analytical observations deal more with the how of a disease or health-related events. Experimental epidemiology contains three case types: randomized controlled trials, often used for new medicine and veterinary medicine or drug testing; field trials conducted on those at a high risk of contracting a disease, segmented or occupational disease, or animal with high risk factors due to presence in certain communities, as well as community trials, research on certain populations. Comparison between descriptive and analytical epidemiology. Descriptive epidemiology defines the frequency, distribution of diseases, and other health-related events, while analytical epidemiology analyzes the different determinants of diseases and other health problems. In descriptive epidemiology, we are looking for how many populations were affected. And in the same time, analytical epidemiology, how was the population affected? Descriptive epidemiology, asking about when was the population affected? Why? Analytical epidemiology, searching for why was this population affected? Descriptive epidemiology, asking about where was the population affected and who was affected in this population. Descriptive epidemiology describes the distribution of disease of interest, possible cause factors in terms of animals or human populations, locality, seasonal time which affect in a population. Descriptive epidemiology usually describe the what, who, where, when, and why, how of a situation, whether it be a space shuttle launch or a house fire or farm affection. We strive in characterization of epidemiological event, whether it is endemic of foot and mouth disease or pandemic of SARS-CoV-2, or even a local increase in all trainee vehicle crashes. However, epidemiology tend to use synonym for the 5 W's. What? Health issue of concern. Who? Animal or person. Where? The place. When? The time. Why and how? Causes, risk factors, modes of transmission. Descriptive epidemiology covers the time, the place, the agent, animal or persons. Compiling and analyzing data by time, place, and agent is desirable for several reasons. First, by looking at the data carefully, epidemiology becomes very familiar with every data, as we can see what the data can or cannot reveal based on the variables available, its limitation. For example, the number of records with missing information for each important variable, as what is missing in increasing number of cattle affected with foot and mouth disease even with vaccination. And it is contract. For example, all cases range in age from 2 months to 6 years plus 17 years old, in increasing the rate of their deaths in Africa. Second, the epidemiology learn the extent and pattern of public health problems or veterinarian diseases to be investigated, in which months, such as babesiosis during the summer months, or foot and mouth disease during winter, or flu during winter, which neighboring farms or neighboring cities, and which group of animals or peoples are at the most and least cases. Epidemiology creates a detailed description of the health of populations, either for animal or human, that can be easily communicated with tables, graphs, and maps. We all see from the month of January until today maps, tables, and graphs of COVID-19 distribution all over the world, with number of new cases, total cases, mortalities. Fourth, the epidemiology can identify places or groups within the population itself that have high rates of disease. We said before the segment population. This information in turn provides important clue to causes of certain diseases. That's why newly born calves showing diarrhea or showing respiratory form of red nose because of absence of vaccination. And this clue can be turned into testable, measurable. Time. Occurrence of disease changes over the time. Some of these changes occur regularly, while others are unpredictable. Two diseases may be occur during the same season each year, including foot and mouth disease and respiratory manifestations, or in human, flu in winter and West Nile virus infection in August and September. In contrast, diseases such as hepatitis B and salmonellosis can occur in any time. Lumpy skin disease now is endemic and can occur in any time. In animals, 4 diseases that occur seasonally, such as babesiosis, such as Venezuelan equine encephalitis, such as West Nile virus equine encephalitis, veterinarians and health officials can anticipate their occurrence and design, control, and prevention measures for them, like vaccination or massive treatment of population which come contact with the causes. For diseases that occur sporadically, epidemiology can conduct studies to identify the causes and the mode of spreading, and then develop appropriate targeted action to control and prevent further occurrence of the disease, such as increasing of bloat in cattle farms that eat forage, so we can provide in the second time during cultivation some carminative plants to prevent this bloat. This is also epidemiology. In either situation, displaying the pattern of the disease. Occurrence by time is critical for monitoring disease occurrence in the population and for assessing whether the veterinarian or public health intervention made in correct way or in wrong way, like massive vaccination of foot and mouth disease every 4 months now occur in Egypt for protection against occurrence of the disease. It is a successful method. In the past, massive vaccination occurred only 2 times per year, and it is a wrong control design. So when we correct this design by 3 vaccination every year, the number of diseased animal become near 0. Time data are usually displayed with 2-dimensional graph, and we in studying them for contract the time of outbreak caused by contaminated or pasteurized milk or others. This is in case of salmonellosis or E. coli infection for entering them in new community for human consumption, or reporting a new case of tuberculosis in new community or new population of animals due to introduction of newly infected animal. Sometimes time is plotted, and depending on the disease, the time scale may be as broad as years or decade, or as brief as days or even hours of the day. Avian flu studied and taken time for long years to control. For some conditions, many chronic diseases, for example, such as tuberculosis, Jaundice disease, epidemiologists tend to be interested in long-term patterns in the number of cases or the rate. For other conditions, such as plotting outbreaks, the relevant time here is 4 days or hours. Some of the common types of time-related graphs are further described during the following slides. Seasonality. Disease occurrence can be graphed by week or month over the course of a year or more to show its seasonal pattern. If some diseases that reported in this sheep collection with flushing procedures of feeds that occur during the months before feast of sacrificing at all Islamic countries due to overfeeding and flushing of these sheep struck disease, one of the clostridial infection, reported more than others. In human, influenza disease or flu disease occur and reporting all over the world during the winter season. So, knowing and characterization of seasonal distribution may be suggest the control and the causative agent possible of this disease. Descriptive epidemiology of COVID-19 in Egypt from the date of 31 of December 2019 up to 10 of April. In December 31, 2019, China Republic reports severe cases of unidentified pneumonia. In 7th of January, viral infection identified as a novel coronavirus. At the end of January, WHO declares a public health emergency of international concern. In Egypt, reporting the first case of coronavirus in Cairo at 14th of February. At 3rd of March, Egyptian Minister of Health traveled to China. At 8th of March, first COVID-19 fatality recorded in Egypt. At 13th of March, 33 cases recorded on Luxor Aswan cruise ship. 14th of March, announcement of Egyptian 100 billion initial COVID-19 prevention plan and suspicion of educational facilities. At 16th of March, CPE cuts of interest rate by 300 billion. At 19th of March, suspension of aviation. At 21 of March, mosques, churches closure and CPE as community additional support to tourism and industry. At 16 of March, 495 COVID-19 cases confirmed. Overnight, nationwide embargo reported. At the 10th of April, total detected COVID-19 cases reached to 1,794 with 135 deaths. It is a descriptive epidemiology for COVID-19 in Egypt between the time of December 31 and April of 2020. Descriptive epidemiology also asking about the place. Describing the occurrence of the disease by place provides insight into the geographical extent of the problem and its geographical variation. Characterization by place refers not only to place of residence, but to any geographical location relevant to disease occurrence. Such locations include place of diagnosis or report, the site of worker, school district, hospital unit, veterinary medical provider, recent travel destination. The unit may be as large as quantities or countries or as small as street, farm, or even wing in hospital or farm inside a governorate or operating room or veterinary laboratory in certain street. Sometimes place refer not to a specific location at all, but to a place category such as urban or rural or Bedouin, domestic or foreign, as intestinal or non-intestinal. The example here is what World Health Organization given as a chart. Information given to travel from Ebola and to Ebola affected countries, where what everybody need to know. This during the Ebola time. This chart describes the signs of Ebola and what the person have to be taken to come out and come a distance from taking Ebola by application of hygienic personnel. Descriptive epidemiology dealing with places, and it is a very important way during studying the occurrence of disease in a place. Analytical epidemiology work through analysis of different observations by using of diagnostic procedures and statistical procedures. The key features of analytic epidemiology is a comparison group. By analysis of the disaster epidemic of lumpy skin disease that reported during 2006 in Egypt, by analysis of demographic factors such as age, sex, and cattle breeds, constitutional factors such as the immune status of the cattle at that period, circumstances such as entrance of new animals from infected areas, revealed that all cattle with all ages, all sexes, all breeds are infected, and the immune status of the animal is low, as doses of vaccinations that come out from Abbasiyya Institute is lower than the number of the whole population of cattle in Egypt. About the circumstances, there is new entrance of cattle from Ethiopia at that year. So, identifying factors associated with any disease help veterinarian authorities or health officials for prevention and control activities. It also guides additional research into and about the causes of the diseases. Thus, analytical epidemiology is concerned with the search for causes and effects, or why and how. Analytical epidemiology used to quantify the association between exposures and outcome and to test the theories about causal relationship. Also, epidemiology by itself can never prove that a particular exposure caused a particular outcome. Often, however, epidemiology provides sufficient evidence to take appropriate control and prevention measures. Epidemiological studies fall into two: diagnostic procedures and statistical procedures, and combine between this for analysis of occurrence of any disease. A good example for analytical epidemiology is that study done in Netherlands at 2018 about tuberculosis in human beings at that area. This analytical epidemiology studies showing the number of infected persons between the years of 2014 and 2018. About 469 showing pulmonary tuberculosis and 337 showing extrapulmonary tuberculosis. 21 of these cases are active by finding and screening and contact investigation, while 79 of these cases are found by symptoms appearance. When analysis of the persons, they are found that 77 of foreign persons coming from another countries are infected, as Ethiopia, Morocco, India, Somalia. Also, when they are tested, the people infected by tuberculosis for immune-compromised disease or HIV infection, they found that the highest rate are found at 2015 by about 74%, and lower one is about 2014 by 61%. How many are notifiable persons? The most notified noted at 2017 by about 1,832 persons are infected. So the analysis of this chart showing that the highest number of tuberculosis in Netherlands showed at the year of 2016. The most symptomatic tuberculosis is with pulmonary type, and the most detected persons not diagnostic but by symptoms. Also, HIV infected persons showing high rate of infection by tuberculosis, and 77% of foreigners are infected by tuberculosis. This chart helps in control and prevention programs for tuberculosis in Netherlands. World Health Organization elaborate this map for pandemic H1N1 at 2009 about laboratory confirmed cases and number of deaths as reported at the date of 30 of August 2009. We found that United States and Mexico showing more than 100 deaths. This also noted in South of America, in Australia, India, and the southeast of Asia. In Europe, while in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and South of Africa, the deaths between 1 to 10. This is analytical map for the distribution of H1N1 in the world during the dates elaborated. Analytical epidemiology of presence of SARS-CoV-2 throughout the world by elaborating of COVID-19 meter at the 29th of April 2020, showing that total cases all over the world at that time is about 3,020,000, and total deaths are 22 and 8,000. So these numbers are distributed all over the world, as in United States about infection of 1 million, in Russia 99,000, in UK 65,000, in China 82,000. This analytical about the number of cases reported and confirmed in laboratory give us an idea about the distribution of COVID-19 throughout the world. Epidemiology series will be continued by TVL channel, so please subscribe this channel to have the rest.